So you have a choice. You can either. Are you going to use that?
I would like to.
Okay, let me turn it on. You can either come up, one individual can come up, or the whole group can come up. You can project stuff. The only problem with doing that is if it takes too long to get everything going. I should turn the side.
Saturday. I'm just saying, one, and then we play the Cowboys, the Bears, and the Broncos. Basically, give them the Super Bowl right now. And they were like 21. They're about almost 30, and then they walk
I can't come back to television.
in general.
The caps is on. The caps is on. Yeah. Yeah. The only complaint is the one. The only complaint is the sound. It doesn't work that well. It's the mic is from the video from the webcam.
It's not very big.
No.
Okay, here we go.
We've been compiling our work on a PowerPoint to maintain format throughout the semester, so we're not going to be running around like crazy at the end trying to throw it all into a document. So
And the other group is gonna be doing the same thing for the bike.
No.
Okay, good.
So we have like one minute left.
Next group. I'm done.
Anyway, so we've got through most of our feasibility study, and that has included space diagram, really loosely looking at the program we're looking at.
Basically, I based two of the programming adjacency diagrams on the student itself and then the exhibit space. Like the studios would be the most important spaces to students, so since we use the building the most, I thought of it as the student as the main user to do the adjacency diagrams, and then as the exhibit space as the main focus, which you would want there or be able to see connecting to a large exhibit space. That would probably include like pinup.
So this was our workflow which we saw last time, and we put that in the schedule with dates. So we broke down to the three main components and then a final documenting of everything.
So where's today on there?
I don't know if I can. I have to save it.
It's the second box.
So right now we've completed this as of Friday, and so we're presenting it today. For this week, by the end of this week, we'll have this feasibility study.
The survey of the context and site study parameters, that would be mostly my job. And me and Ian's job, checking out the zoning and the sites, and I guess possible master planning and phasing for the building.
You know, normally at this point, what you would have next to those would be percentage completion if you've started certain things. You know, so you would have, this is 20% complete at this point, because I'm sure you're not waiting for each one to be finished before you start the next one, right?
Right.
Because that wouldn't make sense.
So we did the desires and controls of it, and then we went in, this is the second part which we're presenting today, so the client was here.
Yeah, as the client owner, I looked at precedents of what the school might look like, certain aspects of different buildings, so it's just a plethora of examples for the things we're looking at, materials, the spaces on the inside, what's going on the outside, how to design the facade, or what the school might like to connect to the community and stuff.
Did any of them get into how architecture is being taught today, rather, that's different than yesterday?
Yeah, visually, what I was looking at was like one of the designs, the facade. One of the main things, one of the main goals of the client user was that it connects to the community. So I thought about what types of architecture would help connect something to the community. And the hospital that's in Harlem, it has a mural built behind the glazing, and so it's like a big work of art, public work of art that tries to make a connection to the city. So I thought that was a clever way of trying to consider architecture for today, is trying to make it connect more, not just make it look pretty.
You know, when all of you are looking at examples, you might want to not just look at architecture schools, but look at other organizations that are involved in design, like Google or something like that, and how they foster creativity. And since in the future it's perhaps possible that architecture students will be doing something very similar digitally and all kinds of other ways. There are other models.
Yeah, all the examples aren't schools, but I know that I can expand the search to a lot of different things.
Remember, I was actually looking at the presidents of the schools, the older ones like Harvard that's been around for a while. They basically just change the furniture and stuff on the inside, but the building still looks, I guess, updated. But then the newer schools that you really don't know about, they have a better, I guess, a more modern facade and spaces within the inside. And there are large spaces with, it's like an auditorium in one of them that's, you know, it provides a large platform for a numerous amount of students to, similar to how we have under the bridge, it's like a larger space.
So that was our programmer looking at adjacencies. And then I just kind of loosely as a contract engineer, they wanted some sustainability factors that could fit into the school. So, and construction methods that might drive where they place certain spaces inside for lighting. So I gave them options for shades and different methods of creating a more sustainable environment.
Now, aren't most of these solutions for the designer? How do you change these into a specification that the programmer gives the designer?
I'm not sure we know exactly yet, but we wanted it to be there, just ideas, maybe for the program and architects to help them in the program, maybe it gives them something out there.
You know what this represents? I think something called maybe a design guide or a design inspiration source or something, so that the traditional role of the program is not to give the designer examples of buildings of that type and so on, but there's probably, why not? Because the architect might do that as one of their first things they do.
Right.
So it is possible to rethink what that whole programming activity is to include that kind of inspirational examples of maybe techniques or solutions or, you know, even building skins.
So that's pretty much it. The rest of it's getting into percentages of further steps in the process. And that's it.
Okay. I think it's actually a pretty smart way to go to start building the PowerPoint right from the beginning. And so there's this single vehicle that everybody's contributing to, and it gets refined over time until you get to the end of the semester, and then you've got this finished product. Okay, let's hear from group 2. You need the lights back on. Carlos, you want the lights on? Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty boring. The second floor studios. A little like that, or
The other
the
one is just a big space, and then we have tables with large on top of it. Like you could just come up on top of it.
yeah, I think I saw those pictures.
Yeah, that is bigger ones there.
Other than nothing they could do about that.
All right, based on for our roles, I'm a programmer, Travis is the client user, Mona is the architect, and Ann is the contractor engineer. So based on our task, which was we were researching the different schools of architecture, and so Travis, Mona, and Anna kind of focused on the other schools to research. I think I focus on the FAMU School of Architecture, what's existing now in terms of the spatial uses and the spaces here. And so from there, I just sort of identified the frequent spaces within the School of Architecture, the ones that are frequently used mostly. And then from that, I just kind of broke it down into the square footage and the space requirement to come up with the net assignable square footage. A lot of those numbers were sort of just off the top of my head. I didn't get into specifics necessarily. I wanted to ask how detailed did you want it to be for something like that, or is it just sort of?
Well, that's a good question, because square footages can come from mainly two sources. Sometimes you're given a formula, and that's what happens here in the state of Florida for educational facilities.
Right.
There's only a certain amount of square footage per student that they will fund
Right.
and allow. The other way to do it, which is much more preferable, is to do a little sketch of the spatial requirements in order to perform the task in an optimum kind of way, so that there's enough space but not way more than you need. And that's what I'm kind of hoping you guys look at, because the old formulas were based upon, in this case, in our building, when I designed those desks, I thought everybody was gonna have big drafting boards with parallel bars and all that stuff. And that's why the desks are 6 feet by 2.5 feet and way bigger than they need to be. So what the question you need to ask is, 5 years from now, what kind of desk do you need in your studio? And how much storage do you need in your studio? And how much of it is individual sitting at your computer versus group work or presentations or projections on the wall, so you have to kind of reinvent what happens in the studio. What should happen in the studio but can't happen right now because of our physical configuration, which is out of date.
Do you think certain things like in the first year studio where they do a lot of hand drawing and that kind of stuff, do you think those kind of things will stay?
Yeah.
And then as they progress, it'll get away from it and go digital.
Yeah,
So maybe the first year studio needs to have the larger desk for the drafting tables or the light boxes for drafting, that kind of stuff. And then as you get to third and fourth year, do away with that stuff and go to more computers and printing and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think so. And the computers may eventually go from laptops to phones.
Okay. So within that, it's kind of broke down the.
Have we already got where computers and phones, so aren't we already there?
We call them
So just you can't see anything on the screen, that was on from.
Oh, they need cords for that.
And we
No,
have
but your
some-
phone is going to be able to project
Yeah.
onto a wall.
Yeah.
They make cords for that.
Yeah, we get 3D, just grab it, pull, and. We had some other things on there, other schools of architecture, but the Blackboard won't let them open up. Oh, there's one, never mind, there's one. It opened up the second floor, and that's, just kind of a layout of another school, how they do theirs, graduate studios right across from the faculty studios. This is just, I think, the library. Yeah, this is the library here they have, and theirs is on the second floor. Their library is huge.
Are we still gonna have a library?
I think it's good to have it, because, especially as far as like getting textbooks and architectural magazines and things like that. There are some things that the books are still good to have. And a lot of older textbooks and older architectural books, you're not really going to find them online, but you can find them in the library and hard copy. But I think you will need to kind of add more computers in the library for research and that.
Or e-readers, right?
Yeah, I agree. That'd be cool, have an e-reader, assigned to students that has all the information from the library. You can check out, you know, exactly what they have it or whatever.
So you carry the library in your back pocket?
Exactly. Be awesome. Alright, that's pretty much what we got right now. Still in that phase, we're about to finish up this and go on to.
You know, whenever you look at examples, precedents, you really have to be careful because you have to really know why you're looking at it and what is it about it that you can learn, because there are a lot of bad things you can learn from it. And a lot of these examples, because they've already been built, are outdated.
Oh, yeah.
So you got to find the most innovative, most sort of forward-thinking, most.
When I was trying to do the searching and that kind of thing, I was trying to focus on newest built possible. So you get kind of the most.
You know, even those were designed 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And 10 years ago, the technology.
2 years ago is out of date.
Yeah. So.
With the basic technology these days.
So I'm not sure what relevance the precedents have if you're looking at schools of architecture. That's why I suggested looking at Google or at Apple or.
So,
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
Hi, okay. So, our group has a deliverable coming up next week. We're sort of working on tasks that each of us are bringing to our first integrated project team meeting that we're gonna be having next week. So Craig, you wanna share a little bit about what you're working on?
Sure, I've been researching with the owner, to bring to this project, looked online and found the Florida Department of Education. They have a handbook that shows all the requirements for the schools of Florida. And I incorporated that in my wish list that I just was going to present to our first meeting. Some of the things on my wish list is, of course, they have to do by the accordance of that regulation, as well as a few little things that I was hoping that we can bring into the new facility. For instance, like parking up underneath the building, for students and faculty, having each studio have a gallery slash kit room, having a main lounge area for the faculty and students where they can mingle and talk and go over things as well. And each studio and each faculty suites have their own lounges too as well. Each studio would have 4 student office cubicles where they have a layout table, drafting board with drawers and file drawers that they can lock and communicate. So those are the things that I was trying to put in this wish list, to present to our first meeting, and, so we can discuss and maybe, on that some differences.
Probably not as much as Franklin, but last week I did some surveys and some surveys from the professor's perspective and some from the student's perspective. I'm supposed to collect them today from professors and students. Still have to start on the internet research, and yeah.
Yeah, Kyle represents our user group, so he's actually doing.
So how large was your sample? How many surveys?
We just put out like a
six,
handful,
just a
basically,
handful,
just to kind of
about
get
six.
So you weren't
an
trying to
idea
get
of
it
direction.
statistically relevant, it was just
It was more an
illustrative.
example of what we
Yeah.
would do if you were in a program
Yeah.
building, yeah. And some of my work is sort of an illustrative example too. I've been trying to think about from the contractor's perspective, what would they be doing to prepare for this meeting as they're coming in. And because they've already been hired by the university, they would have received like a letter to proceed. So one of the things that I'll be documenting at our meeting is just, having a document, having a letter to proceed from the university, that as a contractor, I can go ahead and go into the existing site and start doing cleanup and, demo and doing fresh new soil tests, see if there's dirt that's getting moved out or moved in, and some of those early things that will affect the site analysis that the architect will be doing. Maybe even like a memo recommending like ground penetrating radar or something cool like that they could do. So that's what I've been working on as a contractor, just kind of putting together a document list of some of those things that you would probably have early on in the process that would help us move into our site analysis. And I know for Amber as an architect, she's kind of in a funny place because she's trying to come to the meeting without having too many preconceived notions, and trying to be open to particularly the user group and what they're going to be bringing to that first meeting. But I think she's doing a little bit of research into just like the history of the School of Architecture and the history of this building that would have existed here. So looking at some of those things and deciding if those might be things that we want to tie into the new building. We want to have some sort of thing that looks back and looks forward and does that. So I think she's doing some research into that and probably documenting some ideas from that. So yeah.
And who's representing the consultants? Like, you get some mechanical.
Well, in ours in the integrated team delivery, what we decided was that the architect would be bringing on board their consultants and engineers, and the contractor would also be bringing on their like specialty trained contractors, so they would be a part of my team.
Yeah. And so you're having that integrated team meeting next week?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're going to do, and to document the meeting, what we're thinking about doing is just taking meeting minutes, a lot like you would do in a meeting like that. So that way we can put that on the file exchange and share. This is what we discussed, and this is where we got to, and this is how far along we are with different task items that we think would be part of the program.
Yeah, and make sure you end up with action items, which I know you will.
Yeah. Yeah, each person will lead that meeting with action items for the next meeting, so that's where we are.
Okay. Just to give you a heads up, what I'm thinking of doing right now is having a progress and status report meeting every 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today, so you can begin to think about that, and that might become a milestone for you or a target.
Dominic's gonna be out. It's gonna be all.
All right. Group
Everybody
4?
talk about what they do.
Avery? Yeah. Desmond? No, we don't have time.
Alright. Good morning, my name is Craig Todd. I'm the contractor. David McCoy is the owner client. Aaron is the programmer, and Dan is the architect. During our first week, which was last week, we held our kickoff meeting that was held between the owner client and the program. This kickoff meeting was basically to get all the basic information for the project. We was here to get the basics, square footage for the project, any spaces that, the owner client wants in the building, anything that, got to do with site restraints and existing site surveys and soil borne tests, anything that the programmer will use to start putting together this program. This was a meeting that was held, it was conducted with just the owner client and the programmer, and also any building committee members that was already selected joined in this meeting. Also, during this meeting was discussed the architecture and engineer selection. The owner had went through the selection process, selected the architect and engineer. It was brought up to the programmer, so the programmer knows exactly who they're dealing with, who they're working with, so when they go back for the rest of that week, they can do their research, make sure that the architect and engineer got the appropriate experience on the building, so he'll understand how to work with them. Also, during this meeting, we got a little research on existing building, on existing site, anything that the owner may want to put in the building, whether they wanted a LEED required building, what is the main goal of the building, any academic plan that you may have that they want to incorporate into this program and have the programmer out and putting together this program. So this week, after that meeting, the programmer went back with his team and they gathered all the necessary information and research they're going to need for the following week, which we're going to have a kickoff meeting with everyone. The architect, engineer is going to be there. We're going to have the building committee member, the user group, the owner client, everybody, the contractor is going to be there with his specialty. And that's when they're going to start going through their spatial diagrams and functions for the space and any information that the user group want to give to the programmer, they likes, they dislikes, they want, some things that they hated by the old building, some things they'd like to see in the new building. All this will be held in the following week when we have a big kickoff meeting with everybody included in that meeting. But basically, that's everything that we did during that week, which is basically gathering all the information on the client, giving the program everything that he needs to start to put together the program. And so the architect and everybody can start putting together their diagrams on how they want to put this program together, what spaces they want closer to others, what spaces they may not want, what space they may want, and how big of a space, the net size of the square foot for each space is very important. So that's why the academic plan comes into play. We might want to have a studio for 200 people versus 100 people. They might want on the outskirts, inskirt. So that's what we did in the last week, put together, gather all the information so we can start putting together a program. And next week we're going to big kickoff meeting with everybody involved.
So are you suggesting that you now have all the information?
No, I'm not suggesting that. We got basic information.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Just starting off with basic project information. Yeah.
There it is.
Next week, we're gonna start, actually gonna go out and do the surveys for the students and the,
Right.
professors, so that's what we're gonna do towards
We're gonna
the
get all their input on in so we can start developing this program and give them some ideas so we can have some design charrettes for
Right.
on.
You know, we haven't talked about this, but doing a survey is a really tricky thing. It's very hard to phrase or to make a question, isn't a leading question, isn't a biased question, isn't a question that is already kind of suggesting what kind of answer you want, and that, so if they like you, they want to give you the answer you want. There's all kinds of things. So there's a whole science to phrasing questions. So be really careful when you put the question set together. Sometimes open-ended questions are good. And so if you want to, I would suggest that you pass the questions by me, and if I see a real red flag, I'll let you know. I mean, I'm not going to rewrite your questions, but I'm going to say, okay, this one here is going to cause this kind of an answer because of the question.
Would you suggest like a question or something to be like an open-ended discussion?
Well, the best way to go is to ask some carefully crafted questions, very few, and then maybe have an open-ended part at the end where you ask them a question that has something to do with their own, what they can contribute that might be unique and you haven't thought about. It's sort of, and that's where sometimes something comes up that really might make a difference. Now, of course, you're only gonna do a limited number, right? Because this is just a simulation or a simulation. Whenever I've done this, and I've conducted some surveys, I've always had to put together my questions and then do a trial where I get a group of people answering it, and then I redo the questions based on the results I'm getting. And I interview the people who answered the questions and ask them questions like, did any of the questions difficult to understand? Any of the questions seem like leading questions? You know, and so on. And then I adjust the questions. But you don't necessarily have to do that. But that's normally what you do.
And the question is for anybody on the user group, or you talking about just for students?
Any kind of a questionnaire. Any kind of questionnaire.
Well, that's where we are at this time.
Okay, and in 2 weeks, I want to hear about the meeting and how everything.
Yeah, we have
went in there.
deliverables and some diagrams on doing that, for sure.
And you might want to have some product that kind of show us on the screen.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Maybe on your own. Oh, there you go. 2 year.
Purple and blue phone.
This is 5. So do you guys want to start? Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Okay. As far as okay, here's our schedule. Basically, it's our work plan. We've done so far 16th to 23rd. The architect, which is Christian, he assembled a design team, which consists of the contractor, the engineer, the lead consultant, landscape architect, client, even though it's not listed, and also the architect meets with the design team. That happened on the 23rd. Basically, first, what happened with as far as the design team is just assembling people who would be good for the project necessarily, who worked on these schools previously, who were more familiar with this typology. And then there was a meeting with the design team in order to kind of, like, after they've been assembled, to kind of let them know about the project and the logistics and anything that's concerning the school.
Is there a record of that meeting?
Yeah, actually.
Okay.
And there's also a meeting with the client. Yeah, that took place on the 9th. Sorry, I skipped that. And the design shred at the school on the 13th. With the design shred, basically you want to get a overall design concept for the school and basically a list of programming issues and concerns that the students may have because of the main user client and the faculty. And then we have here's what happened at the meeting with the design team. And then I'll show you, what happened with the shred. Actually, go to shred first.
Okay. Basically, during the shred, I'm the programmer. I really just tried to get with the faculty and the students and just figure out what kind of spaces that they felt like were needed, what kind of, just really how the spaces needed to interact with each other, what kind of spatial relationships were important. Didn't want to get into square footage or anything like that, but just, did the students feel like that they should be directly relational to the library or to the classrooms, or did the faculty feel, they need to relate directly to something else? So just basically kind of like a space configuration is really what the aim of the charrette was for me. And these are just kind of some notes of that I took down during the charrette, just kind of mapping out the spaces and taking notes on what the different spaces needed and what they were used for and things like that.
Now within that, is there anything that's innovative, different than what we're doing now here in the building?
One thing that I saw was a need was definitely a video conference room, so that you can have this interaction with people that are not here at the school, people that are away, and things like that. And also some multi-purpose conference rooms that you can have presentations such as this, and not just have it be only a meeting place, but it could also be a critique place, it can be a classroom place, it can be just a multi-purpose conference room, and not just something that's only used by the staff.
So a class like what we're doing today could be in a conference room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is normally what it would be in business, like out in the real world, we'd be sitting in a conference room.
Hi, this is what happened with the architect. Christian met with the design team, and it lists what happened at the meeting. What was talked about was presented. The architect, essentially, he presented what happened at the design shred that the programmer went to, and also the architect went to, and he presents it to the design team so that way they can come up with some type of problem solving that can lead into the program. And so here are the meeting minutes, and the meeting started at 2:30. Presents the charrette. Basically, he allowed for any question or inquiry. So, like the lead consultant, he presents a question about water reclamation, because that's something that might be useful, especially because of Florida and its rain, and what they can do about conserving water. And each person who's involved in the actual process was allowed to ask questions, present things on the floor, so that way the client can respond, because the client is, part of the design team. And then, in order to further, get detail about how everybody feels about the project, they hand out a questionnaire. The questionnaire not to kind of ask what they like or what they dislike, but what would help as far as their specialty is concerned in the program and developing the program as it is now. So we want to be more of an integrated, holistic manner. So after the questionnaire, you gather the questionnaire in order to, analyze that data and see, how we can further the program. And here are the minutes. Meeting adjourned at 3:40. And then we have a meeting with the client again on the 4th, and we're going to record the meeting minutes, and we're going to use that meeting to meet with the design team again the following day.
Do the minutes have any attachments, like any sketches or notes in addition to the formal minutes?
No.
Because what you want to have at the end of the semester is a record of not just the program, but the process getting there. And so part of that process isn't just the formal minutes, but it's other kinds of things. Maybe someone did a really cool napkin sketch, or maybe there's, just think more broadly about the recording of what's going on.
Did you want to copy the questionnaires also?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I'd like to see it. Now, are you putting it on Blackboard?
Yeah, we will.
Okay, I'll look for it there.
Okay.
Okay, we have 2 more groups and we have 5 minutes. So what I think we should do is not try and rush the last 2 groups. Maybe have them present at the beginning of Wednesday's class. And let's use this 5 minutes to kind of discuss what we saw and how that's going, because I have a decision to make. Either I'm going to tighten it up and formalize it a little bit more, or leave you guys on your own as much as you've been on your own up till now. It seems somewhat promising, but I'm a little worried about some of it. And I think that you need to really concentrate on putting as much material on paper or on digital or whatever as you can. So we don't end up with just a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that. So don't be afraid to dump a bunch of stuff into a file on the group page on Blackboard. Because later on, you may need some of that material, even if it seems right now like you've got more than you need, or some of it you may think isn't necessarily all that relevant. It may turn out to be. So there's this thing about having an idea dump or have an information dump, and then later on, when it starts to be refined and you know more and more exactly about what you're looking for and what you're using and what you need, you can go back. You don't have to go back through the research again, because you already did the research, you've got all that material, you're not going to use all of it, but so that was sort of one suggestion. The other suggestion is that we saw a number of approaches, from showing minutes of meetings to showing some diagrams to sort of a verbal presentation of where people are. I think probably in the future everybody should have some evidence of what the latest thing is that they've done and what's the next thing they're going to do. Because and the other thing that was, I thought, really good was to show your work plan and say, okay, we're here on the work plan, and we're 100% complete on this, and we're 10% complete on this, and 20% complete on this. That's what I think would be very helpful. And it's not just for my benefit, but it's for your benefit too, because then you can say, oops, wait a minute, we're starting to get behind on this one. This one's a little bit ahead, so let's shift the manpower onto the one that's getting a little bit behind. So, it's a working work plan. It's something not just to tell everybody, but to tell yourself what you need, any mid-course corrections you may need to make. And don't be afraid to redo your work plan at some point, because every work plan you'll ever do will change from the beginning, sort of at the midpoint, and then at the end, when you look at it, you say, oh, we didn't quite follow this work plan. There was some things that we didn't anticipate. There were some things that just turned out not to be necessary, and so on. So that's my advice. Now on Wednesday, I'm also going to present a model for how the School of Architecture might want to function in the future. Because I'm a little concerned, particularly if you look at existing buildings and existing operations and existing stuff, you're going to miss the whole notion of we're trying to reinvent this school for a school that's relevant to the 21st century and to the second half of the 21st century, maybe even, or at least the second quarter of the, and it's so hard to separate yourself from what you're accustomed to and what you're living in and what you see. I always ran into this when I was doing programming. I would sit down with someone and they would talk about what they want, what they need, and it's really just a reflection of what they already have with maybe a little more space. They weren't really rethinking it. They weren't reinventing it. They weren't reimagining it. And that's what I think, as designers, you guys could do. I'm sure most of you keep track of technology, things that are coming up in technological sort of future. Think about what impact that might have on architectural education. I mean, things like 3D printers have been around for 10 years, and we had a 3D printer here at the school about 6 years ago, because I taught a class where one of the students built a 3D printer in a design build class. And things like laser cutters have been around for 25, 30 years. And schools of architecture have had them for at least 20 years. So we might think we're getting to a cutting edge point, but we aren't. We're like still way behind at this school. This school is behind the times. I want you to take that message and really think about that. And we don't want to be behind the times. We want this new building that you're programming to be state of the art for the time when the building opens, which is going to be 5 years from now at least. So that's my challenge to you. Okay? So on Wednesday we'll have the last two groups, and I'll have a presentation. Yeah.
Well,